Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. My two co-hosts, Mark Humph and Nam Fun, are off for the day, but I do have a special guest I'll introduce in just a minute. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate is not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. With the weather getting a little colder, it's hard to find your tan. So go see Tan Bella. Again, 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Today, we decided to do sports. So it's going to be football movies. That's our trivia question today. All right. And today we are welcoming back Dane Moeller from Primary Residential Mortgage. He's been with us a few times. Dane, welcome to
glad to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's now this is kind of very exciting times. Let's just get right into it. Interest rates obviously have gone way up. So I have to think that the refinance market has dried up considerably.
So absolutely. Although interest rates did come down last week. Last Thursday was the biggest single one-day drop in interest rates ever since they've been recording this sort of thing.
Is that right? What did it go from and then to?
About a 0.5% decrease to rate in one day.
Really?
So let's say 7.25 down to 6.75. Kind of change.
Oh, that's significant.
Substantial.
So why, with everyone, the prime rate going up and all of a sudden, why did rates go down so much in one day?
Mortgage rates, kind of like the stock market, are always buying the news, right? It's all based on future expectations. And on Thursday, the inflation data came out, this CFPI, and it was much lower than expected. So inflation figures came down quite a bit, which makes the people that buy and sell these sort of mortgage-backed securities think, okay, maybe the Fed will get to slam the brakes a little sooner than we thought. And maybe rates won't go quite as high as we thought they would.
Well, wait a minute. So what was the inflation? Didn't the inflation, it was like 8.4%? And what did it go, 7.4? I mean, it was still pretty
I don't have that right in front of me. I want to say it was like 7.7. And then month over month was 0.3 versus the expectation of 0.6. So about 50% of the increase they thought.
Well, like you said, maybe
it's still high. I mean, it's still high, but it was a much lower. It's funny how this stuff works.
Yeah,
it's all based on how it comes in relation to the expectation. So it's similar with stocks. When they have earnings seasons, right? It actually doesn't matter what the earnings are. It matters where they come in relation to the expectation for earnings.
Yeah. That's why it just cracks me up when more frustration than cracks me up really when you hear these government officials say, and we had a surplus, and it's like, no, you still had a deficit, but you just didn't have negative $1 billion. You only have negative 400 million, and so you're celebrating the fact that you had a surplus. That's not a surplus. It's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah, I mean that's how these things work. So. So interest rates, though, are still much higher than a year ago, more than double, right? Refinances are down from a year ago 95% in terms of volume. So for every 100 refinances that were being done, now 5 are being done nationwide.
Okay, and so unless people have a mortgage that's coming due, what other reasons would people refinance into a higher mortgage? One thing I guess is if their property has gone up in value and they want to take money out.
Yeah, Americans are sitting on the most equity in history. There's more wealth tied up in homes than there ever has been. And with inflation, people are getting pinched in their other debts. And you start running up credit card debt at 25%. And other things. All of a sudden, going from 3.5 to 6.5 doesn't seem so bad, right? And it may pencil out. And it's not for everyone, of course, but it may pencil out. And then, so that's a big reason people are still refinancing. There's also situations like divorces and other things where people need to move on to a new loan.
So if people are getting, if they want to refinance, are these people like not eligible for a HELOC, or is that maybe not as good because it's a floating rate?
I mean, prime is at 7 now. So if you're getting prime plus 1, let's say on an equity line, you're at 8%, and that's to start, and the Fed's not done. So, you know, you're
Yeah.
talking 9-10%. Now,
Gotcha.
if you have a big first mortgage and you need a small amount of cash, well, that's still probably a better move, right? But if you have a
Yeah.
small mortgage and you need a large amount of cash,
No,
well, it
refinance
might be
will work.
better to get something fixed
Yeah.
all under one umbrella, even though it's higher. And the reality is, people get loans now. It's not like they're stuck with this new loan forever, just like any loan in the past. So you may need the cash now, you may go up, and then next year, year and a half, you may go back down again. Maybe not to 3, but you know, you might end up back in the 4s and 5s.
Yeah, and then that'd be very interesting to see people if there is a fair amount of refinance. Of course, you said it's only about 5%, and suddenly rates start going down, and people start refinancing all those, and then they refinance again, every time there's a big jump downward. I mean, that's good business for you.
Well, I mean, that's what happened roughly from 2002 or 3 all the way to, you know, to just last year, right? I've helped people that have gone from 7 to 6.5 to 6,
Yeah.
and you know, 0.5% drops all the way down to 2.5.
Yeah, and if they just have to do a little bit of paperwork and maybe a smaller fee or something, that's
Yeah.
it
Yeah, we
definitely
always try
pencils
to
out.
help, you know, past clients make it. It's got to make sense, right? But you
Yeah.
always you look at what the cost is and the benefit, and you know, you might look back and say, well, I should have never done that refinance, and I should have waited till rates even got lower. But there's no way to know, right?
Yeah,
So
but the thing is,
yeah,
they still got the benefit for a certain period of time.
yeah,
And so
absolutely.
it still pencils out. Tell you what, we're going to go to our first commercial break. We're talking football movies here. Which club or which football team did the subjects of the classic 1971 film Brian Song play for? Did you ever see that movie? Excellent movie. The original is good. The second one they did, yeah, it's okay. The original stars James Caan. Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Again, which club did the subjects of the classic 1971 film Brian Song play for? Stay with us. Best of Investing. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, along with my special guest, Dane Moeller of Primary Residential Mortgage. First trivia question. Which football team did the subjects of the classic 1971 film Brian Song play for?
You ready for a guess?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead with the Bears.
Yes, very good.
Right.
Because Brian Piccolo and Gail Sayers was very good. Not bad, especially if you haven't seen the movie. That's pretty good. Okay, so hey, Dane, we forgot to give people your information if they have a question, want to refinance, or want to get a new loan with you.
Yeah, absolutely, Edward. Name is Dane Moeller. I'm with Primary Residential Mortgage here in Marin County, and we have an office in San Francisco as well. You can reach me at 415-870-2752, or you can check us out online at primaryresidentialsf, as in San Francisco.com.
Okay. Now, the word out on the street is that there are a lot of mortgage companies that are laying off their employees. I have to guess because the refinance market has dried up. What's going on with your company?
Yeah, I mean, the refinance market is dried up, and the purchase market is tight too. I mean, there's not much inventory out there, so it's a tight market all around. We're staying strong. Thankfully, we've been in business. Our division here has been in business for close to 15 years, and primary residential has been close to 25. And we have long-standing relationships with all kinds of great referral partners and past clients, and you know, we have a lot of trust out there that we're able to rely on to keep bringing us business. So we're still staying strong, but the industry is definitely right-sizing, which is I think the HR term for it, and it's something we all knew would happen, but it's a painful process. You know, you hear friends and acquaintances that have been laid off, and that's not good. You know, it sounds nice in concept. Okay, great. All these people got in the business when it was good. They'll leave when it gets tight. But you know, that actual process is difficult to watch.
Well, yeah, I mean, look what happened with Facebook and Amazon and all these companies laying off thousands of people.
Yeah, they're also right sizing, but you know, each one of those numbers is a real person. Now needs to find a new job.
Well, and it's interesting because you keep hearing about in just in general that there's a lot of jobs out there. Now, maybe these people don't want those kind of jobs, but it's not like when I graduated from college in 1981, it was a pretty bad recession, and you were lucky to get a job. Here, it still seems you can just kind of walk out and get a job somewhere else. No.
I mean, unemployment claims are still extremely low. The unemployment rate is very low, although the headline unemployment rate doesn't take into account people who are kind of discouraged and not looking. But it's still, we're still considered full employment. And that's one of the things that the Fed is waiting for. And it's unfortunate that they have to wait to see pain inflicted before they take their foot off the throat, people's throats, you know. But that's what they're waiting for. And why this inflation has been stubborn is because, you know, it's amazing. I want everybody to have a job, but you know, if everyone has a job, inflation is the next thing that's going to occur.
True. Yeah. Hey, moving on here, just to bring up, this is not really do with real estate, but the latest, this FTX crypto debacle. You've heard about that?
Of course.
Some famous people who, celebrities and sports people who are being sued, Shaq, Tom Brady, Larry David, the comedian, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and Steph Curry among the main people are being sued, as well as the CEO. Obviously, apparently it's a big Ponzi scheme. I'm trying to remember how big the Enron was, because this one's like 50 billion. And then I can't remember how big Madoff was.
This was, oh yeah, Madoff was massive. Although it's so funny with crypto because you kind of, it's so illusionary. Where like Madoff was like, here's my real dollars, right? Where crypto's like, I bought this, it went up in value, I think, and you know, it's all paper money.
Well, but the original though, you had to originally pay in real cash, didn't you?
Yeah, to buy whatever the things were. And you know, the lawsuit, to me, it seems like they're just stretching and naming anyone they can. But you know, the guy at the core of it, CBF or CFB, whatever his initials are that he goes by, I mean, he's in a lot of trouble. He was loaning out, you know, his clients, you know, and money to other people without collateral and cover it. You can't do that.
Is that what that wasn't the main part of the issue, was it?
Well, that's one of the reasons it collapsed. I mean, they basically had a run on the bank and he didn't have the money. You know, I mean, that's
that part,
the collapse, and he didn't have the money because he had a side thing with Alameda Research, I think it's called, and he was loaning them money that, you know, wasn't really his, and then they were losing it, and so where did it go? And you know, it's a whole mess. I mean, crypto was, it's an interesting thing. I mean, it was really fun and it was going crazy and everybody was making money, and then all of a sudden they're not, and it's losing a lot of its luster. I was reading that a big financial advisor, financial group was saying, you know, there was a time there where I thought crypto would be part of a balanced portfolio, right? Okay, you own your, you know, international stuff, your national, you have your safety, you have your equities, you have this, and you have your crypto over here. And it's just a little part. He's like, there's no place for it now.
No, and you have your tulip bulbs like they had in the 1600s, you know, and a bunch of rocks and sand. I mean, that's part of it too. Yeah, I've never been a crypto person, just because I've seen this stuff kind of come and go over the last, you know, 50 years, you know, with the Ponzi schemes and all that. And just, I mean, whether or not it's a Ponzi scheme, it's not backed by anything. I mean, we could start the Edward and Dane crypto coin.
If we were smart.
Yeah.
Or should have, you know. I was able to get into it and get out of it, you know, unscathed.
Okay, well, there you go. If you were able to sell. You know, it's funny, I think about, you know, everyone bashes timeshares, right? And interestingly enough, I'm probably one of the few people around who actually made money on a timeshare.
Oh, wow. You're probably one of the few.
Well, because I didn't buy it at the top. I didn't buy it from the developer. I bought it from somebody who just wanted to get rid of it. So I bought it really, really cheaply. And I didn't actually use it. I traded it once, and then I sold it for a little bit more than I paid for it. So you know, I was unscathed on that one too.
Yeah.
You know, plus I got the benefit of it. At least with crypto, you can't really do anything. You know, it's not back. And it's funny because I was bashing Bitcoin when it was, you know, 3,000, 5,000, 60,000, you know, and now it's down to about 16,000. I still think it's overpriced because it's not based on anything.
Well, and have you ever tried to pay somebody in crypto? It's extremely inconvenient and expensive. So it's not even very good. It fails in my mind as a medium of exchange because one, the price changes all over the place. So how do you know what you're really paying or what you're receiving? But then two, if you ever try to actually like if you wanted to send me money and you're like, I'm going to pay you in crypto, this will be fun. The fees are outrageous. The process is really hard. Like,
what are the fees on something like that?
I remember I tried to do it when I first bought crypto, and I tried to pay someone $25, and it was going to cost like $6 to pay someone $25.
Wow.
And I was like, well, okay, I'm not doing that.
Not doing that. Hey, tell you what, we'll continue this conversation. We're going to cut to our second commercial break here. Who starred in the 1974 prison football movie, The Longest Yard? Now, we all know Adam Sandler redid it about a few years ago, whatever. But, and then extra credit if you can name the warden as well. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Who starred in the 1974 prison football movie, The Longest Yard? All right, stay with us. Best of Investing. I'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to the Best of Investing one more time. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Dane Muller of Primary Residential Mortgage. Who starred in the 1974 prison football movie, The Longest Yard?
Oh my God, it's on the tip of my tongue. He's got that great mustache.
Yep, that's right.
Oh,
He didn't have it in this movie though.
I know, but I can picture him.
Yeah.
Oh, Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds. Very good. Okay, now extra credit if you can name the warden.
I think I used all my brain cells trying to get Burt Reynolds out of.
Think Green Acres. Eddie Albert.
Eddie Albert. Oh, wow.
Eddie Albert.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I would have had that one.
That was kind of a fun one. Okay, so let's talk a little bit of strategy for people who are maybe still thinking about buying a house. We're not seeing the run up as we did before, and lots and lots of overbids and competitive offers, but there's probably still some, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, people are still buying. And a year ago, people would call me and say, house prices are going up 15, 20, 25%. Everybody's building way over asking, should I buy a house? And this is crazy. And now people are asking, should I buy a house for completely different reasons? Because interest rates are up, right? But there are some great deals out there. And we're seeing a lot of use of the what's called a temporary buy down. So on our loan programs, and this is something available through a lot of banks, the seller can temporarily put down your interest rate for the first 1, 2, or 3 years. So for example, we have a 3-2-1 buy down where the seller covers the cost, and then you get 3%. Your payment is based on 3% lower the first year than the actual interest rate, 2% lower the second year, and 1% lower the third year. So theoretically, you'll refinance before you ever get to the actual note rate, or you'll at least have 3 years of way lower payments. So we're seeing stuff like that.
What does that cost to buy that down?
So it depends on the loan amount. It's a split of the payment. So the seller is covering the portion you are not covering. So whatever the difference is, so let's say your rate was 7%, but you get to pay as 4%. Well, the seller covers the difference there, that 3%. And they pay it all at closing. They're not involved or anything. They pay it all.
I was gonna say, how do you get the seller to?
Yeah, no, they pay it all as a credit at closing. It goes into an escrow account, and then that escrow account pays the difference every month.
Wow, that's interesting. I haven't heard that. So how do you propose that to the seller? You just say, hey, we want a credit for $20,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah, and a year ago they would have laughed. They would have laughed you out of the house, right? And now they're going, absolutely, because you see these houses that are having price reductions.
Yeah,
right? They would much rather give you $20,000 than lower the price by $30,000, right? And the equivalent math for a payment that low is as if they lowered the house $100,000, let's say. I mean, it depends on the house price you're starting at, but it's a massive difference on the payment in comparison to the cost to the seller. So the seller wins because they don't have to lower the house price as much. The buyer wins because they get a much lower payment, and both realtors win because they got a transaction. So once you kind of make it work for all sides, it's like, okay, yeah, let's do that.
That's very interesting, because if you were just to tell the seller, just lower the price $20,000, if you're talking about a $500,000 worth of loan instead of $520,000 worth of loan, that 7% interest rate compared to 4% is still going to be a fairly hefty payment. Yeah,
it's a massive difference. So it's a really cool thing, and sellers are on board. So right now there are deals. There's houses that are sitting. There's sellers who are nervous. They're selling for a reason. It's a tight market. I mean, no one is. Some people are probably selling because they realize they missed the top and they wish they had sold earlier. But a lot of sellers are like, it's a time for them to sell for whatever reason. They need to move, or they inherit the house, or it's need to downsize, want to upsize. They need to sell. So they're
I want to go back to this buy down for a minute because it's very fascinating to me. What is roughly, and I know it depends on a lot of factors, but in what you've experienced so far, what's the break even point for the buyer to where he would have said, let's say he ends up selling the house 2 months later, he would have been better off just having a $20,000 credit, or does he get that back? Does he get that?
You get it back. So if you pay off the loan within the time period of the temporary buy down, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years, because there are choices for all of those, the amount that you didn't use is applied to your principal, so you owe the bank less money. So let's say that you got that $20,000 from the seller. 6 months later, you're like, you know what? Rates have fallen. I'm gonna refinance. Or hey, I gotta sell because I just won the lottery and I'm moving to the mansion. They will take the amount you haven't used and they will lower the amount you owe on the payoff by that amount. So you don't ever lose the money.
Interesting, but potentially you could make more over the 3-year period, can't you? Because of the monthly payment?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what you're moving to, right? I mean, if you wouldn't pay off the loan for no reason, right? You wouldn't just pay it off and go back to the same interest rate without that temporary buy down, right? So, but if you were able to lower your interest rate, let's say you started at 7, and then you were able to refinance to 6 forever, right? And you got that subsidy to lower your principal, well, you might do that, right? But your payment might go up for the time period where you weren't getting that super reduced payment in the short term.
But still, right? I mean, it's a great sales tool, I would think, for sure. Now, from the lender's standpoint, how are they benefiting?
Well, I mean, for us, we're still qualifying people at the full interest rate. So qualification stuff doesn't change. It really doesn't change our math in any way because we're still receiving the same total payment, right? We're still, in this example, still getting that 7% payment. It's just partially paid by the buyer and partially paid by the seller. So for us, it's kind of a nothing for the loan.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so the lender is still getting his 7% interest rate, just part of it's coming from the seller. Okay, so really, it's okay. So it's really the seller who's really paying for all this, but it's basically, listen, it's just a negotiated sales tool, to get your house sold. Tell you what, we will ask our next trivia question on the next break. All right, stay with us. Best of Investing. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown, along with Dane Moeller here. So before we came back on, we were just talking about how, different strategies, different sales strategies, and how I said back in the old days when interest rates were really high, one of the, sales techniques that were used by potentially some people were that you could take half the money, let's say someone wanted to invest $10,000 and the broker could say, listen, we can put you into some stuff where you're within 10 years, a 10-year mark, absolutely 100% government guaranteed, you'll have at least a 2% return. But we're going to do all this risky stuff that you might make 10, 20, 30, 50, 80% a year. But your absolute minimum, you can't lose anything, and you will 100% guarantee get a 2% return minimum. I mean, that's a pretty good sales technique, right? Yeah. And the way you do it is you take a portion of the money, back then it was about half, and you would buy a 10-year zero coupon bond from the government. And it was guaranteed to grow to at least whatever 2% on the full amount is. And then you could take the rest of the money and, play the ponies or put it on roulette. And it wouldn't matter because even if you lost all that money, the half portion, the $5,000 grew to, $11,200, whatever the figure is. So it's a good sales technique. And in fact, it's interesting. There was a company years ago, and we're talking about, gosh, this is going back over 30 years ago, where it was a multi-level marketing company. And what they did was they handed out these basically catalogs. And it was stuff that you would normally buy anyway, like a TV or soap or whatever, sort of like Amway type of thing, right? And the fascinating thing about this was when you signed up with them, you were absolutely guaranteed whatever you spent in 20 years, you would get a check for that amount. So if you bought a TV for, let's say, $1,000, you get the TV. And then, oh, by the way, 20 years from now, you're going to get that $1,000 back automatically. And, you think, wow, how can they do that? Well, what they were doing was they effectively, the TV really probably only cost $750. They would take $250 and they were going to a well-known insurance company and buying an annuity that would grow to $1,000 in 20 years. And so people, I mean, it worked. I mean, people, 20 years later, even though the company itself ended up going out of business, people still got their money, that $1,000 back, because the insurance company they bought it from, the annuity policy, they got it from. I thought that was pretty interesting. But
that is interesting. Do you remember the name of that company?
I think it was called Trade Vest, but I don't look that up sometime. And again,
look that up. That's an interesting thing.
It is, and it's funny because it wasn't a scam, and you were paying, basically, if you waited for a sale, you were better off to wait for a sale and go down to Best Buy, let's say, and buy the same TV for $750 instead of $1,000. But interestingly enough, it was sort of a forced savings too, because how many people? Right? I mean, how many people are going to buy the $750 TV and say, okay, now I'm going to take $250 and buy an annuity, which you couldn't even do back then, and probably
how many people with the savings rate in this country have $1,000 coming to them at any point in the future from a purchase? So little.
Yeah. So again, even though the company, the multi-level marketing company itself went out of business, I think within 5 years, people weren't really that upset, because 20 years later, or 15 years from that point, they actually got the check that they were promised.
As long as people got what they were promised, no one should be upset. I mean, they're probably happy. They're probably upset it didn't exist any longer.
Yeah. So in the old days, when I used to sell disability insurance, there was a company called Maccabees, which was like the cream of it was like the Rolls Royce of insurance. And they had a product where if you wanted to pay, let's just say disability insurance cost $1,000. If you wanted to pay $1,000, you could. Excuse me. But if you chose to pay $1,500, every 10 years, they would give you back $12,000 less any claims you had, which was basically 80% of the $1,500 times 10 years. So being the accounting background that I had, I looked on this on a calculator and, time value of money and all that. And it worked out to be back then, like 15% tax-free. And so I started selling that to people. And as some people, it's just a gimmick and all this kind of stuff. And how do I know the company's going to be in business in 10 years? Well, the company had been around since 1858 or 1878 or something. So that part we got over. And I said, listen, you don't have to do that. I said, but you can pay the $1,000, but where are you going to invest $500 a year, backed by insurance company at 15% tax-free? And so most people, I'd say probably 80% of the people I sold it to decided to pay the $1,500.
Yeah.
And every 10 years, they got a check. In fact, I have some clients who are on their third 10-year check. They've had the policy for 30 years. And so you think, well, gosh, why would the insurance company do that? Well, it's called retention. Just like with mortgages, these companies, they don't want you to just keep refinancing out of them. They spend time, they pay the brokers and all this kind of stuff, right? And once my clients got these policies, they didn't get out because the premiums were guaranteed until age 65. So, I had these dentists who were, 55 years old, and they were paying premiums like they were when they were 25. And so in fact, I'm still getting paid little commissions off policies I sold in 1984. Wow. Now, it's not a lot. It's just a little tiny bit. But son of a gun, if these dentists are still, mostly I specialize with dentists, So it's really, I get a kick out of it because sometimes, it all adds up, but it's like, 10 cents here, 50 cents here, because I get a diminishing commission on it. But the clients are happy. And then I've had a few clients who actually put claims in, and sure enough, the insurance company paid them. So, I mean, everything's on the up and up, but it's just a good sales technique. Let's see here. We've got one more trivia question. Before we do that, though, again, Dane, did you guys come up with that buy down? Or
No,
okay.
that's a program that's actually been around a long time.
Okay.
And it's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac backed. I mean, this is, it's a pretty common program. But
Who holds on to the money?
So I mean, just like any other conventional loan, and actually you can do it on FHA and VA loans as well. So it's not just conventional.
Well, it's nice that they hold that. The seller pays it and they just hold it.
Yeah. So the servicer holds the funds. The person you pay your mortgage to. So it's been around a long time. But when it's a seller's market, it's not a strategy that works very well, right? Because sellers are like, no, pay me more than I asked. I'm not giving you. Right? So it only really becomes common in times like this where the market is more balanced.
All right. Give out your information one more time, and then we're going to go to our last commercial trivia question.
Yeah. My name is Dane Moeller, Primary Residential Mortgage. You can reach me at 415-870-2752 or get us on the web at primaryresidentialsf, as in San Francisco.com.
All right, here's our third trivia question. We're talking football movies. Who starred in the movie All the Right Moves about a high school football player from Ampipe, Pennsylvania? Is not a real town. Desperate for a scholarship. This was one of his younger roles. He's quite the superstar now. All right, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We'll be back with some closing comments. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Dane Moeller. Our third trivia question was, who starred in the movie All the Right Moves about a high school football player from Ampipe, Pennsylvania, desperate for a scholarship?
This one I don't got.
Okay.
No idea.
Tom Cruise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I still can't picture it. I don't think I've seen that movie.
Yeah, he was actually a pretty good movie. He's quite younger in those days.
Oh, I imagine.
Yeah. So we've got just a few minutes here. Dane, put on your crystal ball and your what did Johnny Carson that had? That Malmac or something?
I forget.
Karnak. Yes. Put on your Karnak hat and tell us what do you think the future looks like?
In terms of housing and house prices, I think we're going to see some softening continuing through the winter. I think it's going to be continue to be a tough market for a seller. And I think that's going to continue until rates start coming down a little bit. I think that we will see the Fed go up 0.5% in December.
Another 0.5%.
The debate's been, will they do another 3/4 or half? And I think now we'll find, I think they will slow to 0.5. And then in the first part of next year, I think that they'll tailor down maybe another 1/2 or 1/4, maybe another 1/4. But by spring, I think they're going to be ready to be at the top. As soon as the Fed stops raising, mortgage rates should come down. Historically, it's not when the Fed starts lowering, it's just when they stop raising is when mortgage rates start moving down.
So wait a minute, hold on. Right now, the prime is at 7%, very high, not compared to 1981, but that's okay. So you think they might go up 1/2 or potentially 3/4, and then they'll go up again?
Yeah, I think we'll reach prime 8 to 8.5 at the top, somewhere in that range.
Wow.
Before they come down, and I think that's I don't think overly conservative or overly optimistic. I think that's a pretty mid-range expectation. There is 0% chance it's not going higher in December. I'll tell you that much. Unless some sort of crazy catastrophe, and knock on wood that doesn't happen, occurs between then and now. But
so if people are thinking about refinancing or buying that house and locking in the rate, at least they should do it now before it goes up. And then
again, mortgage rates aren't lockstep with the Fed. And as soon as, when the writing's on the wall that the Fed's going to stop raising, not necessarily lower, mortgage rates will start coming down. I think when mortgage rates do come down, there will be a lot of buyers that are coming back into the market. And the buyers, the somewhat balanced, somewhat buyers market we're experiencing now will come to an end, and we're going to swing back to a seller dominated market.
Really? Okay. It's so funny that buyers, they just kind of, rates are coming down. Well, I'm going to wait because rates are going to come down some more. I'm going to wait. They always seem to wait. The wait
strategy is you can time it a little, but you're much better off buying a house now and refinancing than you are trying to wait and buy a house when rates come down a little bit, because so is everybody else. And there's
The
no
prices of the
inventory,
house, yeah.
you know, depending on where you are. I mean, I'm in Marin, and most of the immediate Bay Area, there's no inventory being built. I mean, there's no like
Yeah,
new things.
that's true.
I mean, you get out a little farther, you're in Lathrop, you're in some other areas. There's new construction, you know, and that they are building houses.
And generally they're not right. There are no prepayment penalties on these loans, right?
Yeah, it's
There's
very,
little
very
cost.
uncommon to find
Yeah.
a loan with the prepayment penalty.
And
you
also
know,
the cost, there's not a bunch of points paid either.
no,
So
I mean, you can pencil out really well getting a great deal, and then assuming you can refinance later. You got to make sure you can afford the payment if you don't refi, though, because there's no guarantees
yeah.
where rates are going. But
And don't mess up your finances with, you know,
Yeah.
changing jobs and credit cards and bad credit and stuff like that.
Exactly.
All
So
right, my friend. Are you ready for our thoughts for the day? Okay.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Why did the scarecrow decline dessert? He was already stuffed.
Ah,
Yeah,
there
not
you
bad,
go.
huh? Yeah, these are good jokes for your kids, okay? And I saw an ad in Craigslist, broken puppets for sale, no strings attached. But that's kind of cute.
Oh, that's
All right.
funny.
Tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.